Need a pen?
We now call the meeting to order. If we could please pay attention to Councilwoman Clear for the invocation to be followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. If you could please rise after the presentation of the invocation.
Okay, please join me in prayer. Heavenly Father, we seek blessings on the task before us. Bless our efforts with clear insight, our deliberations with wisdom, our work with clarity and accuracy, and our decisions with impartiality. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We have a quick presentation tonight. If our friends from the HRC would join us. And Officer Bell as well. So I know who you all are, but for the public, could you please introduce yourselves?
Darcella Goodman, HRC.
Lorraine Williams, Chair of HRC.
Rehan Reza, HRC.
And we'll talk about you in a second. So today we're very pleased to present the Troy Scroggins Award to Officer Tim Bell. It's one of the things that the HRC does is that they have the Troy Scroggins Award. And this award recognizes individuals whose effort to eliminate discrimination and prejudice in our community and to promote diversity are absolutely, obvious. This year, we are recognizing Mr. Tim Bell. So what people don't know and may not know, and they should know, is that we have an amazing program called the Our Kids Program, or OK. And what the OK program focuses on is working with young African-American males and providing mentors to these young men to enrich their lives and to ensure that they're able to be successful in school and in their future endeavors and to help them dream. I have watched Mr. Bell in action, encouraging men and individuals to stand up and to invest in the life of our young men. And I am very proud of the work that he has done. So before I read the proclamation, I would like for you to say a few words and share about your program with us.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for coming out. Just want to tell everybody I really appreciate being recognized for this award. And if not for the hard work of the men in the community and the young boys who actually want to better their lives, I wouldn't be up here. The boys that we have in this program, unfortunately, a lot of them come from broken homes. Statistically, African Americans have a 75% single mother household rate. So a lot of these kids don't have a positive male role model in their home. So that's why I mobilize men in the community to get with me so we can give these boys positive men that they can look up to and men that they know who care about them in the community. Because it's so powerful to have somebody that they know that no matter what, will be there for you. I had one young man 2 years ago who ended up going to jail. I was the only person who visited him. His own mother didn't visit him. His father didn't visit him. His grandmother didn't visit him. And for him to know that a police officer actually took time out of his schedule every single day to come make time for him, hopefully in the long run, it'll pay off. This isn't an overnight fix because it wasn't an overnight problem to how we got here. So it's going to take time. But that's so important, is to give time to these young men and to these young people in our community, because that's how we know we're going to make them better. So I appreciate you guys' time, and I appreciate receiving this award.
Help me recognize Tim Bell. And the certificate reads, "This is the Troy Scroggins Award, and the City of Topeka honors Timothy Bell. It is my pleasure to join with the Human Resource Relations Commission in recognizing Timothy Bell for his service to Topeka in ameliorating discrimination and prejudice in advancing diversity. Continued commitment, dedication in serving our youth in our community as a positive role model." Thank you so much for your service.
Thank you.
we have a subsequent presentation. This presentation, if Mr. Leo Espinosa, Gabe O'Shea, and Ms. Mikola Saunders could please join the podium. This presentation is regarding one of the items that the council body discussed in our retreat as a strategic planning initiative, and that was taking a look at our flag, keeping our seal, the same seal, but then having the professionals that visit Topeka, engaging different sectors of our community to have a discussion about, do we keep the flag the way that it is, and what are ideas of our community thinking with regards to what our flag could look like. So without further ado, I will introduce Mr. Leo Espinosa.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. For those of you who do not know me, my name is Leo Espinosa. I work as a college and career advocate at Topeka High School. I'm also on the Forge leadership team. On behalf of the entire group, I'd like to thank all of you for giving us a few minutes of your night tonight to talk to you about the Topeka Flag Initiative we're working on.
Hi, I'm Mikola Saunders, and during the day I work in marketing for the Greater Topeka Partnership. I'm also a member of the Forge leadership team and excited to be part of the Flag Initiative. Thank you for having us today.
And my name is Gabriel O'Shea, and I'm the Executive Director of Forge. Forge is proud to present this idea of creating a new city flag. Topeka, we're in the middle of a renaissance. The emergence of the Noto Art District. We have the Cyrus Hotel Battery open, the downtown plaza. There's so much momentum we have going on here in Topeka. And we believe that there's this community pride that we feel, especially as a Forge and young professionals, that we have going on. And we believe that this is in alignment with the resolution that you guys passed on June 5th, especially the part about growing the population by 1,000. So I want to just end with paraphrasing Bill Snyder. The opportunity to create the new city flag that would be a rallying symbol of community pride presents itself here tonight, and is not one to be taken lightly. Thank you.
And to expand on why Gabe mentions that this is not to be taken lightly is because, as Gabe mentioned, there's a lot of events and projects taking place in our community these days, and that's very exciting for our entire city. One of the ways that we can build a more cohesive city and bring more people to rally around a symbol is by working on the Topeka flag. It would be a way for all of our residents to show their pride both here in the state of Kansas as well as in our community, but also when they travel and go to other communities. We want this project and are planning for this project to be as engaging and as inclusive as possible. We plan to reach sections of the community that have not traditionally felt like they've been included in decision making as part of our city. So we're really wanting this to be a collaborative effort, and the project that we have planned will make sure to accomplish that, because it is our hope that by the end of this entire project, we'll have a final result that we will all be content with, but also we'll be happy with the process and the way it went, and the way it ensured that as many people as possible were involved, so that the final project is something that we can all proudly wave both here and beyond. We want the final flag that arises to be something that is a symbol of not just who we are today, but also who we've been in the past and the city that Topeka will be in the future.
So one of the things that has come up for a number of communities that have undertaken work like this since 2015, when the topic of vexillology really gained a lot of interest because of a TED Talk, is the difference in purpose between the city seal and a community's flag. So you know that the city seal represents the government of the community. That's why you put it on the water tower. That's why it's on the parking meter cars and the city vehicles and the proclamation that you just read for Officer Bell today. And so the difference is the flag represents the citizenry rather than the government, right? So what we really need as a community is something that reflects the vibrancy and the modernity that we have as a community today. We really hope, as Leo mentioned, that the process that we are modeling after another community that went through this pretty recently really does grab people from all walks of life, all age demographics, people that maybe want to submit a design, maybe they just have an opinion when they see one. We want to hear from everyone. So over the next couple weeks, you'll hear a lot more about how that process will really come alive. But we wanted to draw, lastly, just a little bit of attention to the points in your packet about what makes a good flag versus not such a good flag. And we really want to spend some time in our process educating the community about that and what makes a good design. One thing that's really important to note is there are only about 20 city flags we've learned from city staff that actually fly in Topeka right now. So because of the distinction between the city flag and the seal, we're not going to be asking anybody to repaint the water tower or cars or anything like that. It's really just 20 flags. And we hope that at the end of this process, like Leo said, there's enough community buy-in to this process that that flag represents every person in Topeka today and in the future, and that we'll see them when we walk down the street to get ice cream in the neighborhood, or on a coffee mug that you send your grandma who lives in a different town, you know. So we'd stand for any questions, but I also just want to point out, if you haven't seen that TED Talk and you're watching at home, that's the link you need to go to for that TED Talk about what makes a good flag. So thanks very much. We'll stand for any questions.
Body, do you have any questions for these young professionals that are eager to hear your feedback on how they go about their process? Councilwoman Claire.
And that's my question. What's your next step? Getting the feedback from citizens?
We have several events slated for the next few weeks, which you will be hearing more about in the weeks to come. By the end of this month, everything should be clear, but the next step is we're going to be having a press conference, which will outline the rules for the design project that will have guidelines for people wishing to submit ideas for what the flag could look like.
Great, thank you.
Councilwoman Hiller.
Thank you, Mayor. Just, you made reference to a time frame. When do you think this will be wrapped up? And if you don't know, that's okay, but if you've got a time frame that you're shooting for, it'll help us all to know.
Yeah. We do have a timeline. It is not a hard timeline, but we are hoping to be finished by early next year with a final product.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Additional questions? Councilman Mays.
Not so much a question. I just wanted to thank you guys for picking up the ball and running with it. I think that our image in Topeka is something that needs to be updated to reflect the progress that we've made, and I appreciate you guys doing that.
Thank you.
What he said.
Well, I just want to thank all of you, because that was one of the big discussion items that we had in our strategic planning. And had it not been the desire and the will of the body to maybe take a look at how we were going to do this, and if we were going to do that, we would never have the opportunity to engage our young professionals, which yet again, here they are, standing up, Forge, stepping up and saying, we're going to bring in the community together and we're going to do some awesome things. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
We now proceed with the roll call.
Mayor Daly.
Here.
Council members Hiller.
Here.
Clear.
Here.
Ortiz. Here. Emerson.
Here.
Padilla.
Here.
Jensen.
Present.
Mays.
Here.
Cohen. And Lester.
Here.
We now proceed with appointments, if the clerk would read.
A is a board appointment recommending the reappointment of Thomas Wolkamp to the Board of Building and Fire Appeals for a term ending June 1, 2020.
What is the pleasure of the body? Deputy Mayor.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion to approve by the Deputy Mayor. We have a second by Councilman Emerson. Any comments? Seeing none, we proceed with the voting. The mayor does not vote.
We have 8 yes.
8 having voting yes, the motion passes. We now proceed to the consent agenda. If the clerk would read.
A are minutes of the special meeting of June 16, 2018, and the regular meeting of June 19, 2018, and there are no applications.
It's the pleasure of the body. Deputy Mayor.
Motion to approve.
Deputy Mayor makes a motion to approve. Councilwoman Claire seconds. If there's no comments or discussion, we proceed with the voting.
Mayor. We have 9 yes.
9 having voting yes, the motion passes. We now proceed to the action items. Item A, if the clerk would read.
A is an ordinance introduced by City Manager Brent Trout, amending the district map referred to made a part of the zoning ordinance by Section 1850050 of the Topeka Municipal Code by providing for certain changes in zoning on property located at 336 Southeast 45th Street from C2 Commercial District to M1A Limited Multifamily District.
City Manager?
Thank you, Mayor. Governing body, tonight we have a request for rezoning as is described here. Planning Director Finder will come forward and give us a short presentation about what we're looking at asking for approval of.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager. Good evening, governing body. This will be very short. I'll just show you the aerial here, which includes a house that was built prior to our change in zoning code in 1992, which made this non-conforming. The current zoning is actually commercial, even though the house, which was legal back before 1992. The owners are coming forward to try and get that made conforming into a residential zoning so they can close on the sale of their house. And with this action, they'll be extremely happy.
So body, this is, are there any questions from the body? Because this is the area that we're gonna go into the reading of the disclosure, the ex parte communication disclosure. So any comments or questions? Yes, Councilwoman Heller.
Yeah, if Mr. Finder could just briefly talk about whether there were any objections, what the sentiments of the Planning Commission were.
Councilwoman Heller, there was not any objections by the neighbors through the neighborhood meetings or comments at the public hearing.
Thank you. Thank you.
Councilman Padilla. We have a motion by Councilman Padilla. We have a second by the Deputy Mayor. Prior to proceeding with the vote, each member of the governing body who has engaged in any ex parte communication with any individual, either in favor or against the matter being considered, must state that this communication occurred and indicate that even in light of having this communication, you're able to fairly and objectively and impartially consider the measure based only on the evidence provided on the record. The record includes Planning Commission minutes, the staff report and its attachments, the public comments made during the Planning Commission hearing, and similar relevant information to the matter. The declaration is required due to the fact that the governing body is acting as a quasi-judicial role in making this decision and must demonstrate that the appropriate process has been afforded. So we will go through each council member. Councilwoman Hiller?
None.
Councilwoman Claire?
None.
Councilwoman Ortiz?
None to my recollection.
Councilman Emerson? None. Councilman Padilla? Deputy Mayor?
None.
Councilman Mays?
None.
Councilman Lesser?
None.
I have none as well. We now have a motion and a second. Are there any additional comments or questions? If not, we proceed with the voting.
We have 9 yes.
9 having voting yes, the motion passes. We now proceed with item B, if the clerk would read.
B is a resolution introduced by City Manager Brent Trout approving the 2018 Neighborhood Event and Beautification Grant Program, the Neighborhood Partnership Program, as recommended by the Neighborhood Partnership Program Grant Review Committee.
City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. Tonight we have one grant recommendation for you. Neighborhood Relations Director Sasha Hahn will present that recommendation.
Good evening, governing body members. You have one request before you this evening from the College Hill Neighborhood Association for their Independence Day, or I'm sorry, 3rd and 4th of July festivities is what they call their event. $1,200 is the request. The application was reviewed by the committee and recommended for approval. I provided you with the next schedule for our 3rd round of applications, and I would be delighted to answer any questions you have.
Are there any questions for Ms. Hahn? We have a motion by Councilwoman Ortiz, second by Deputy Mayor. If there's no questions, we proceed with the voting.
We have 9 yes.
9 having voting yes, the motion passes. We now move on to item C, City of Topeka budget, if the clerk would read.
C is discussion of and possible action on the 2019 proposed City of Topeka operating budget.
City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. Tonight, we're on to the next steps regarding approval of the budget. At this time, I'd asked Budget Director Nick Hawkins to please come forward and give a recap of where we started and where we're at right now and what we're asking for consideration tonight of the council.
Good evening. Tonight, following along with the budget calendar that we have would be a discussion of an action on amendments for the 2019 budget. We've had 2 budget workshops as well as a discussion at the June 19th council meeting. And so in following along with that, we would have the amendment discussion tonight. Next week would be voting on the setting of the maximum taxes levied, which would mean that after that point, could not exceed, you could still do amendments after that point, but you could not exceed the amount in each one of those funds. So you'll set that limit next week, and then steps after that would be a formal public hearing on August 7th and adoption of the budget on August 14th.
We have heard the presentation from Mr. Hawkins. Prior to beginning the discussion of the budget, we do have one individual signed up for public comment. If we could have Mr. Spencer Duncan approach the podium. First and only.
Good evening, I am Spencer Duncan, 2513 Southwest Ashworth Place. I stand before you tonight as the 3-day-old president of the Topeka Performing Arts Center Board of Trustees. I've been on the board for just under 2 years, but my presidency did not start until July 1, so it's relatively new from that perspective. I think Jim just didn't want to come to these meetings. I think it's the old I went to the bathroom and next thing I know I'm the president, right? Yeah. First of all, I want to thank the city for its past support of TPAC. Although most of you have heard from us and we like to continue to remind you that you do own the building and have some responsibility there, your support is also essential not just to what we're trying to accomplish, but to the city as a whole. So thank you for that. I also want to remind everyone, we're not asking for more. We're just asking for what we have had. So I think that's an important distinction. We're not here tonight saying, please up what we've previously had the last few years. We just want to maintain that $150,000 line item that we use for some operating. Consistent city funding is also important. It not only helps us not have to do budgets year to year, but do some forecasting and budget maybe in 2- and 3-year increments. But it's also looked upon by people who come to Topeka, by promoters who look at what kind of support is this venue getting, because that also tells them how the city views its facility and what the impact of that facility is. So there is a true impact to how we can book the building as to the support we get from the city itself. We have provided with you, and can even give you more details, that we have a documented economic impact of $9 million that facility brings to the city. So we don't view the line items, the money that you give us, as just, hey, free money, give it to us. We work very hard to ensure that there is a return on investment to the city for every dollar that comes in. We try to make sure that that's many times multiplied throughout the city. So TPAC not only has economic development impact, but it clearly has a quality of life impact. And as we move towards downtown development, in the last 27 years, outside of city employees who've come to work downtown and others, no facility has brought more people downtown on a regular basis than TPAC. So that's important also moving forward to make sure that there's something there for people to continue to go to when it's slow nights otherwise and not weekends for the restaurants and such they're trying to develop. But here's the big question. The constituents ask you, why do you give TPAC money? Right? And we've tried to provide to you various reasons that are all important from all the ones I just listed. But at the end of the day, what it comes down to is we have tried to keep a balance between making sure that we bring in national and international acts versus serving the community. That has been an essential component of TPAC's mission for 27 years. Now, if you would like us to change that, we can have that conversation. We don't want to. We think that serves the better purpose, but we're open to that conversation if that's what the city directs. But we would like to point out, for example, Mannheim Steamroller is going to the Expo Center this December. They wanted to come to the TPAC first. We passed on that because we have Kansas Ballet, Ballet Midwest, and It Takes a Village, all who book dates at those times in December. We provide those groups basically what I call cost rent, right? We're not trying to make money off them. We're trying to break even so that they can use the facility and afford to use the facility. So one of them might pay $3,000 today. Without some of this money that you provide us, that rent could go up to $8,000 because we have to fill that gap. But in doing that, I think we all agree, Mannheim Steamroller would bring more money into that building. We would make more money if we brought in Mannheim Steamroller. But we balance those acts with what better serves the community. That's where those dollars go. That's the importance of that line item to that facility. So understand that if we don't get that money, we will have to make some tough decisions, whether that's increasing rents or pushing out some of those dates. We don't want to do that. Don't make us do that. That's pretty much the begging that I'm doing as I come up here. But that at least gives you a very clear understanding of why those dollars are very important to us. With that, I'm done.
Do we have any questions for Mr. Duncan? Seeing none, thank you, Mr. Duncan, for your comments. Oh, Deputy Mayor, Mr. Duncan, please remain.
So how do you come up with that $9 million economic impact?
I'll give you the short version, but we can email you. We have it broken down. It's based on several factors. How much sales tax we collect, how much liquor tax we collect, and the percentage of that which comes back to the city eventually through that complicated process. How many people go through the building. We've looked at the same models that Jetto and Go Topeka and the Chamber use in terms of what does one person equal when they come into Topeka. We look at the zip code. So how many people have bought tickets to an event who live here versus are coming in from outside the city, so they spend a few extra dollars for gas, purchasing stuff. So it's that, and we have it broken down, and I'd be happy to provide it to you.
That'd be great. And then I would also be interested to know how you balance the needs of the community versus bringing in a revenue-producing event.
Well, we try to put them first if we can. I mean, that's
the community or the revenue.
The community, which is why we have some of the financial challenges that we do in making some of those decisions. And so that is a real. But we try to do them first. And there have been some times where we have gone to community functions and said, look, we really want these people in the building. Is there any way we can work with you to move your event? As opposed to, get out, we're bringing in so-and-so. So we do work with groups that, and we try to plan, obviously, some things pop up, people want to rent the building or something we just can't miss comes in. We do try to look at year in advance, so we don't have too many of those situations where we can at least pass early and know, well, locals here, something's that. So it's a little matrix, but we try very hard to balance
black
it.
magic.
Right, yeah, that's right.
Excellent. Thank you for your comments.
Yep.
Councilman Padilla.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'm interested in the comments you made about appealing to the community as a whole. I've always looked at TPAC myself personally as a venue that hasn't been exposed to the entire community of Topeka. And how do you work at trying to make that more attended by the larger part of the community and within the facility itself, beyond the big room? Do you have other venues within the facility that maybe would appeal to a smaller community group?
We do. So one of the first conversations I had with Larry Goronsky, who apologizes, by the way, for not being here. He booked a vacation a long time ago, and I told him, do not cancel it for them. God willing, you're great people, but don't cancel it for the city council. Go on vacation. So otherwise, he would be here tonight to answer any questions you might have. But one of the first conversations I had with him before I became president was, I'll give you just two examples. One is, we need better diversity on our board of trustees. And so we have some openings, and that's exactly how we'll look to fill those. Better diversify the individuals who sit on the board, who have input into the process, and can guide us in some directions that guys like me may not be aware of. The second thing is, we have a black box facility that is completely underused in that building. It does have some great events. It was just used by Jeff Crady. That was great, but it is completely underused. And so I have asked the TPAC staff and myself, I'm working on a plan that would allow us to open up that facility to X amount of dates a year at almost essentially no cost to some local artists who are a little more diverse than what we've traditionally had in there, to allow those, whether it's a playwright or an artist, to use that for several weekends to put on what they're doing in this community, to try to bring new people into TPAC that right now maybe just don't see some things that appeal to them in the building. So those are just two examples of things that I've sort of directed the staff at this point to look into.
Thank you.
Mr. Duncan, did Mannheim Steamroller make money for TPAC last time it was here?
Yes, I have to go back and tell you how much, but yes. I mean, that's my guess. Now, I wasn't on the board then, so I can't, but I believe when we had a conversation about it, Larry's comment was that it did.
And one of the calls that I received from the community was letting me know that community events are having their rents hiked up significantly.
No, what we sent out was a letter essentially saying, please contact your council person, because if we do not get the money, this is an example of so for example, I believe It Takes a Village, and Kansas Ballet got notes that said you're paying $3,000 now, which they can afford. This is the market rate that we might have to. It's not a full 300% increase, but for them a 50 to 100% increase, going from 3 to 6 or 8 is extreme. It's the difference between them making money and losing money.
Thank you for clarifying
So yes, we
that.
did not say it's happening. We said please let them understand this is the impact to your organization. So that you didn't just hear from people like me. You actually heard it from the people who can tell you that it's really true. This is a real problem, and can give you their perspective on what that would do to what they're trying to accomplish.
Councilwoman Claire.
Let me preface this with saying I like TPAC. However, when you say don't make us do this, it's not just us. I mean, you make it sound like we're going to run TPAC if we don't give you this $50,000. My understanding is you didn't have anybody looking for grants last year. And my understanding is that you didn't quite reach your goal of
we brought in
donations.
30, I don't have it in front of me. We brought in grant money, $30,000 or something. It was in the letter I provided, but I have to go back and look. So we did bring in grant dollars last year. We did hire for the first time, as far as I know, at least in many years, a marketing person who now works in the office who is beating those bushes and has been told that's what you need to do. And that was one of the things that some of us board members knew we needed to have, and that the city told us, you need to do that, and we agreed. And so we put that in place.
Right, but we have so many people saying the same thing. Please don't cut us, please don't cut us. We need more money, we need more money. And you've got to understand, you have got to take on 95% of this. From what I read here, most cities do not support the local theaters.
No,
am I reading
that's
that?
reversed. Most do.
Indicates that there are few other local theaters primarily supported by a local government unit, absent large support from universities.
I can present you something that says different. In fact, VenueWorks, who operates many of these facilities, most of the facilities they're in get some sort of local support.
Well, then can I ask whoever sent this to us where they got this information? Was that Nick?
I don't know who sent that to you.
Well, I wasn't talking to you.
Oh, sorry.
I know you don't know.
So before we go forward, do we have any other questions directed at Mr. Duncan so that we could relieve him?
Well, let me just answer that in one other way. Here's the difference, and I'll go back to you own the building. And through the years, maintenance continues to be deferred. So you have one line item that is additional to what we're asking that pays for that building. But in some of that deferred maintenance, we're not energy efficient. When you were doing Johnson controls in a lot of buildings, you didn't come to TPAC. We aren't water efficient, right? We aren't internet efficient. So there's some efficiencies that we also lose that increases that other line item because for the last decade plus, maintenance has been deferred and we've had to take on some of those costs too. So that's a slight difference in what some of the other organizations ask for in the however you want to call it, that we also deal with.
Our city manager was going to make some remarks.
Okay.
No, the only thing I was going to say was that the information was pulled together by our finance staff.
Okay. And it also says, well, in this memo I have it, that the city paid $349,000. The 2019 operating budget for TPAC is $392,000. So that's like everything. Is that correct? So that's a lot of money. I mean, so it sounds like, yeah, we just need this 150, but we're actually paying 392,000.
Right, and I just remind you again, it's your building. So that's why that's partially the case there. Right.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Lesser.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As I've kind of said before, I think it's important that TPAC, with all our downtown activity and renovations and things, I do believe TPAC is important, and I do support continuing to fund you guys. That being said, I would also though have some expectations, and along with the contribution that we made. I mean, you talk about deferred maintenance, all those type of things. I don't think you have a capital account for capital investments. The roof, if you compare us to, or yourself to Civic Theater or somebody like that, their roof blows off, they write a check for their roof. Blows off here, we pay for it. Boiler goes out, you don't have a capital investment account that you're keeping, we pay for that. So deferred maintenance really doesn't wash too much with me. That we take care of that. That being said, you know, like I said, I do support it, but you guys got to pick your game up. You said 30,000. The financials I asked for last year, we had $12,000 in grant income, according to your financial statement. So that's something that's got to improve. I tell this just because I've been to several different things there. You guys got to improve the customer experience, you know, and this kind of proved to me a little bit where for the year you had $16,000 in concession sales and $7,000 in food sales. Part of that is because when I went to go get a beer for the 5 people who were with me, I didn't even make it back in time for the 30-minute deal. So you got to pick that up, you know, and you're just leaving money on the table out there. And I'm looking at this as a business owner and how you run a business, because you're quasi getting funding from us, but at the same time, you got to run it like a business as well and look at these things where you can develop revenue and have a customer experience. And when I talk to people out there, they say the same thing. Oh, I couldn't use a credit card. I had, and so, you know, right, wrong, good or bad, some of those things where I got one beer for my guests, you know, if they could go back and get forth, they'd probably had 4 or 5. You know what I mean? So you have to look at that if you're going to do that. So like I said, I support you guys. I want us to be partners in it to help you guys and subsidize what we need to. But these areas here, you got to pick it up. Thank you.
Yep. I'll just point out, last year, part of our final payment was contingent on us reaching some goals that we worked on with the city. We hit those to the satisfaction of the finance director and the city manager. And in the letter that I sent you and in what we've proposed to the city manager, we've argued, if you give us that 150, do the same thing. Hold us accountable to that point, that last payment is contingent upon that. And I do think that that's not only reasonable to ask for, but more than other people are willing to offer sometimes.
Well, thank you for your comments, Mr. Duncan.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Ortiz?
Spencer.
Oh, people want you, Duncan.
Dismissed, sorry.
I can appreciate what Councilman Lesser said. And I've been on here for quite a while, and so I've seen a lot of funding, you know, at a high 350, 300, you know, 275, 250. And I've met with a lot of the directors, and I do believe that a lot of them believe that we should just give money, that that's our duty. I've had one tell me that to our face, that that's just our duty. And I have a really good friend in Chicago that is a very good marketer, and she also writes a lot of the contracts. And I think, you know, talking to her, she's from Topeka, and I remember I went to an event that they didn't even, the lady, as soon as she got through singing, she went straight to the bus, didn't sign anything. We've got to do a better job at that. Just little things like that that people do expect. But I look forward to supporting you. But my question is, what is your vision? Because I've heard a lot of people say, you guys should fund us. I've heard some people say, give us some money, let us do this, let us try, you know, hold us accountable. But you're new. You went to the bathroom, you got the seat, so what? Well, technically, but what is your vision? I want to know before I support you. What is your vision? Have you thought about that?
I have thought about it, and it's on 2 levels, all right, and I'll be very brief. The one is from, similar to what Councilman Lesser indicated, the business side vision of it. Where can we improve to show that those dollars mean something? So it is improving concession sales. It is marketing the building better. It's building into our next contract with VenueWorks, which currently isn't there, incentives for bringing dollars into the building. I don't care if they make money, as long as we're all making money, right? None of that is built into the current contract. So those are the sorts of things on the business side, that's my very boring business side vision of it. The other side is similar to what I addressed earlier. We have to, if we're going to continue keeping this balance, we have to do better at that. So even though we maintain some balance between local and national, international acts, we can improve on that other 50% local by tenfold. Because like I said, there are times and places in that building that are completely underutilized. And it does not cost us much, hardly anything, to allow one of our local playwrights who's desperately searching for a facility to go, to give him him or her 3 weekends in that black box. right? Those are things that if we did, not only does it put it more into use, benefit the community, but brings people into TPAC that otherwise probably haven't been in the building in 10
There you
years.
go.
So those are my two-sided visions, if you were, from the business side to the global community side.
And I know you were not the director at this time when Kyla was here.
I was on the board.
He was on the board.
And that was Larry's idea.
But I was kind of disappointed. I'll tell you what I was disappointed in. The people that fell out because of the heat. This air conditioning is on. What did you just say? People that would not otherwise step foot in that building, we could have had them in there, had them on stage, and everybody could have been comfortable. And the next time we have an event, we're going back to TPAC. Instead of setting up outside in the heat. I mean, just little things like that. You got Steve Massey back here that's been all over the dang world. Wave your hand, brother. And you know what? He knows what kind of dances that. Let him get on that stage and fill it out, and let him help you. We've got to listen to everybody to bring performances in. We can't do it on the front porch. That just ain't gonna work. I was really, when we look at, I was thinking of the Christian, the Baptist conventions and stuff like that we have. That ain't gonna sell on the front porch. The utilities are already on. You know what I'm saying? And it's just something that we should have looked at.
And even had some conversations behind the scenes. Much to that effect.
All right, okay. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Your Honor. So I think I have a solution that might solve this. I would move to earmark the first $50,000 of any 2018 general fund budget surplus that isn't needed for public safety to TPAC with the review and approval of this body at that time. Any of the first $50,000 of money we have left over from this year's budget, if we don't need it for public safety, we would earmark it to be approved at the time to go to TPAC. We're all fairly confident we're probably going to have at least that much to surplus unless things just really go to hell in a handbasket. And if so, that's why we need to look at it and approve it at that time. But that lays the groundwork then for the $50,000 to go back to them if we have it at the time.
Councilwoman Claire.
Are we discussing this now? Are we?
Well, this is a motion. Do we have a second for the motion, and then we go into discussion?
Second.
Do we have a second by Councilman Lesser? Now we have discussion, Councilwoman Claire.
I don't think it's fair to do that now. I mean, I'd like to earmark it for a few other things. So, I mean, if we're going to earmark, I don't think we need to do it within 5 minutes. I want to think about it, and I want to think about where else we could do that.
And that's why I put the review and approve part in there, because if there is another more pressing need, then absolutely it should be considered for
Then
that.
why do we do it at all?
Well, because what that does is it puts it in writing that we're committed to TPAC and that we're thinking about that. And if we have a surplus that isn't needed for an urgent public safety issue, that we could then consider that. It basically puts it in the hopper so that we consider it at the end of the year.
But I don't want to say just public safety.
I'm happy to accept a friendly amendment.
Anything else. I mean, if it's not needed for.
Well, the problem is that now you've opened Pandora's box because there's a billion things in the community that are needed.
That's exactly. So I don't want to say just TPAC unless we don't know what's going to come up.
And we don't, that's true, but what I'm trying to do,
now.
This is an opportunity for us to demonstrate commitment to the theater. Given that we don't have the money to give them today, at least we're going to look at it and we're making a public statement that we will look at it. And if we have funds available, then we would consider giving it to them.
City Manager.
Well, one of the things that I remembered from when I first got here is that any excess funds and where they go has to be run through the governing body. So if it gets to that point and we identify that we have funds, it would need to come back for you for approval, and then you could decide if that was the best and most important use of those funds. So at that point, I mean, this is basically a statement of support, and then the issue would need to come back for consideration.
Yes. But it puts us on record as publicly supporting them, and then knowing that we would take a look at that issue when we get it.
But then don't say unless public safety needs it.
Well,
because then it's either public safety or TPAC.
Well, but public safety has got to be our first priority in anything, no matter what.
I know, but there's other things that could be our first priority.
What's more important than public safety?
Well, we could have social services. I mean, you could put 50,000 more there. You could put 50,000 in. I mean, there's too many other places. I just don't want to get tied down. Oh, we should have said streets. We should have said this. But we locked into public safety. I just don't want to be locked into public safety.
Thank you, Councilwoman Claire. Additional comments?
So I'm happy to remove that and just
Deputy
say
Mayor, yes.
earmark it, if that's what you would like. And then have it discussed at that time. That's fine.
Councilwoman Hiller, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. I think the idea of simply earmarking it is cleaner. So good discussion in my opinion. I didn't know though, one of the things that I thought worked well last year was that we had a pretty tight performance commitment in that contract. It was ambitious in that it was more than they'd done before, and we held them to it in terms of earning those dollars. And I'd be inclined to kind of take what your proposal was, but have it contingent on meeting or exceeding performance-based goals that are higher than last year's goals.
And I would agree for that with the whole 150,000, not just this 50,000. I mean, I think that doing something like matching money works very well to help work with them to achieve where they've made huge improvements. And I think it's absolutely part of that, so.
Councilwoman Hiller.
They need operating money. And so if it were contingent and they wouldn't get it until February of 2020, that sort of defeats the purpose of providing the operating budget. So if it were just...
Their initial payments could be based on their 2018 performance.
Okay.
It's all on how we write the contract, with my whole
Deputy Mayor order.
Well, my thought would be to have, going on what you said at first, if there was a $100,000 grant, but we had reserved the additional 50, and it was to be awarded upon completion of performance-based goals. To me, that works because I think we've all been looking for the sweet spot for TPAC in the long run. We know that we need to do building improvements for them. We know that downtown is starting to bubble up, but isn't quite there yet in terms of the triangle that will really make us thrive with 3 theater entities, at least 3 restaurants. All those things are still pending. The council has been worried in the past about whether the staff and board were making the kind of efforts that we did want them to see as a quasi-independent entity. And so the strategy that we took last year, I think, worked well. We've been talking about doing performance-based management as well as contracts throughout our city. And so however it would be phrased, I think if it was the 100,000 allocation, which is already in the budget, and then we ask the staff to find another 50 to hold in reserve on performance base.
Councilwoman Claire.
So are we talking about his motion now, or are you talking about this budget now?
Councilwoman Hiller.
What are we talking about?
The motion got changed, and it is pretty much up in the air right now. I was running with the fundamentals of that, which was leave the 100,000 and put a contingent 50 in somewhere. My suggestion is it's performance-based, and that we actually do ask the staff to find the money someplace and hold it.
If I could pause before we move forward, I think that we're discussing giving funds to a nonprofit organization contingent on a performance that we haven't outlined yet. So we're entering pretty dangerous ground because we have not collaborated with our partner, and TPAC is our partner. And I think that all of us here have an interest in ensuring that TPAC is successful. TPAC is a great organization, and it's part of that core downtown set of venues that we have to have, quality of place. But I think that as we're going through this, again, we're discussing establishing parameters that we have not sat down with TPAC and said, can you achieve this? So I think that we have to pause for a second and think this through before we start making policy on the flash. So.
Just a question then.
Councilwoman Hiller.
How would we, I don't remember when we put the contract together last year. I mean, in terms of budget, if we need to ask staff to reserve some money, we were asked to do that tonight. And if we want to do that ultimately contingent on an acceptable contract, we could do that later, could we not?
I would defer to staff to answer that.
Well, I think what we're looking at, one of the things that I wrote down already, was trying to understand what was our performance targets last time, and trying to make sure that we identify whether that's where we want to be or not. So we could ask, I don't remember what they are, but.
It was about a 25-point performance goal set, and the letter here reflects some of them, but not all of them, I think. So it would be worth it to go back through that, for sure.
At least as a starting point. And I mean, that's one of the things you could determine if your plan is that you want to give them additional money, and you can say meet performance guidelines mutually agreed to, and then that would mean staff could work with them to look at what was previously done and not have to decide that specifically right now, but work through determining what that would be, which is, you're right, very difficult to do on the fly here.
Thank you, City Manager. Deputy Mayor, and then followed by Councilman Lesser.
So I think we're talking about two different things here. So what I'm advocating for this evening is simply to earmark the opportunity to allocate future funds. How those future funds are allocated is a discussion for when we actually move to allocate them. I wholeheartedly agree that we need to have performance matrices in place and some sort of goals and work out, is it matching funds or how the funds are dispersed. But we don't know what that is right now. We don't know what that agreement is. We don't know where TPAC is going to be in 6-8 months. So I would hesitate to demand in this current motion that we have that as part of it. But I certainly wouldn't want to actually allocate and disperse funds without some sort of performance metrics in place. I mean, you can't achieve goals if you don't set them. So I wholeheartedly agree that that's an excellent idea and will absolutely support it if we have funds in 2019 that we could then allocate. But for the purpose of tonight, the motion is simply to reserve the opportunity to allocate funds in the future if we should have them.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councilman Lesser.
Yeah, I just want to make a point of procedure. Can you read me what the motion was?
What I have is.
I have it written down if that would help. I'm out of line again, aren't I?
Yes, you are.
Dang it. Come on, tomorrow's a party day. Okay, so my modified motion is I move to earmark the first $50,000 of any 2018 general fund budget surplus to TPAC with the review and approval of this body at that time.
So we've had this motion. I don't think, I'm in agreement with Councilman Hiller that we would make it a goal-oriented, but I don't think she's made an amendment to do so. So all we have is this on here. While I do agree with Karen's where she's going with this, at this point in time, all we have is the motions that's on the floor.
City Manager?
One thing, he said 2018, that's our current budget. You mean 2019?
No, sir. Any budget surplus from this year would then be applied.
I just want to clarify.
Yes.
And understand.
So what I'm hearing is a desire to include in that motion that if you will consider a friendly amendment that states something along the lines that the staff will negotiate with TPAC on some parameters for the agreement of this funds, a performance agreement. Is that adequate, Councilwoman Hiller? Or if you would like to?
If I can ask a question first.
Yes, Councilwoman.
Did we vote on that contract last year as a council? I think so. So, yes, I think we did because of this same kind of discussion. I wasn't prepared with a motion written out, so I guess the contingent on 2018 leftovers and paying it out before the beginning of the year all doesn't work for me.
No.
And so the substitute motion, which somebody could wordsmith a little better, would be to ask the staff to set aside an extra $50,000 for 2019 and all contingent on a contract that was acceptable with performance measures acceptable to council.
City Manager, you had some statements?
Yeah, we need a clarification of an issue that we're concerned about relative to the item that we're considering. I'll let her finish, but as we look at it, we were talking about 19. That's what we're here to do, amendments to the budget for 19.
Right.
when you talk 18, it's no longer an item that's on the agenda.
It's excess funds, basically, of the
Good
current
point.
year budget.
Good point.
Not to meet, you could talk about that at a later point in time, but when you're talking about excess funds, but unless it's a 2019 budget amendment.
So for the public, because this has been very convoluted, and I don't know if we're at the point that we're either going to vote this up or down or make the friendly amendment, the substitute motion. What we're discussing is we have a council member that has made a motion to utilize funds as earmarked for TPAC in the future. And now we're discussing with Councilwoman Hiller a substitute motion that would include some parameters. No? So why don't we vote down or up the first motion?
No.
We can't?
Yeah.
Yeah, oh, that's true, so we're off.
He would need to withdraw his motion.
Yeah.
So would you withdraw your motion, Deputy
Yes.
Mayor? Okay, so now the floor is open. There is no motion on the floor. We have heard the arguments with regards to PPAC, and we're in the process of amendments of the whole budget.
Of the 2019.
Of the 2019 budget. So, now that we have that straight, would anybody like to, Councilwoman Clear?
Okay, first I need to know why we decided to cut it down. I mean, it was recommended, it was put in there, but I don't know why we did that.
City Manager?
Yeah, yes, Councilwoman Clear, we looked at a number of funding options in different particular areas. And when I look at core services that we provide and our responsibilities, the funding of TPAC is not one of those particular items that I look at. And so as we looked at discussions that have occurred, that I saw had occurred regarding funding for TPAC, it was one of those areas that we would make a slight adjustment, not eliminating the funding completely, but make a slight reduction in their budget. It's a third, and I know it's important to them, but that was the purpose that we had. To me, it's not a core purpose.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Mays?
I really feel like we're overcomplicating this. And in my opinion, should either give them the $50,000 or not. And making it contingent on this, triggering that, or micromanaging their benchmarks that they have set for themselves, I feel like is an unnecessary and burdensome process for the finance department, for us, that I personally think we either need to just leave it at 100,000 or vote it to get it back up to 150.
Deputy Mayor?
Thank you. So all nonprofits that get funding from us in any capacity are required to meet performance matrices of some kind and report back. So just giving them the money, they're the only organization that I'm aware of we just write a check to with no expectations. And then if we're going to give them $50,000, where would that come from? My understanding is we don't just have $50,000, so we're going to have to cut something. What's the something? Thank you.
Councilman Padilla?
Thank you. City Manager, you used the term core services that we provide. In reducing it by $50,000 for TPAC, how does that help specific core services that you're reducing to use that money for?
Well, I think Councilman Padilla, what we looked at was the various functions that we perform and what their budget needs were, and prioritizing them determined that we fully funded them, and as we came up short, we looked for locations that we could make a change, and this was one of them. So I think that's the simplest answer I can give you at this point.
Okay. So if we give an additional $50,000 and return that to the budget, what will be affected specifically?
Well, if we're charged with that, we will go back and look at what services we can make changes to, and then, of course, make a recommendation as to how we would make those changes.
Okay.
And we have been looking and beginning to look at those, and we have a few ideas, but based on that, a change only, we don't want to make a statement on what that would be because we don't know if there are any other changes that we might occur. It might make it harder to be able to make the change that we're looking at right now. If we had additional changes that caused us to have to come up with additional funds, that small change may not be enough, and we may have to make additional, look at different types of options.
Understood. Thank you.
Councilwoman Clear.
When I met, I don't even remember who I met with from TPAC. I'm sorry, Guy. But I had mentioned our grant writer, and it was, I had asked that question, and I was told that it's not a specific priority for our grant writer to look for grants for TPAC. However, the position will continue to make TPAC aware of opportunities. I mean, it was my understanding they weren't aware of any opportunities, so maybe our grant writer could help a little more with guiding them to some grants they could apply for. Because she does that in a quasi way, but I don't know.
So at this point in time, I just want to remind the body that at this juncture, the budget does include $100,000 for TPAC. If there were to be, since it seems that the topic at hand and the first amendment is the TPAC budget that has been brought forth by Mr. Duncan, the body would then either decide to make a motion with regards to this item, or in making a motion would mean adding additional funds or removing funds that are existing to that budget, or are you guys ready to talk about another line item that you would like to discuss? Councilwoman Ortiz.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would like to increase their budget by $50,000 and give the new CEO a chance to give him a chance to perform. And the reason why I say that is because if they're not operating, we're going to have an empty building. That's going to cost us a lot more. So, you know, we'll hold Spencer's feet to the fire and work with them. We can work with them in every way that everybody has mentioned up here, but that's my motion, so we can move on.
We have a motion by Councilwoman Ortiz, and we have a second by Councilman Emerson. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. So just one quick comment for the watching public. Our TPAC budget is $500,000. I know we only give them $100,000 in cash out of that, but the city supports TPAC to the tune of $500,000. That light bill is real money. It's not, you know, just floating out there. We write a check for that. So we do invest significantly more than just the $100,000 or just the $150,000. So it's important for people at home to know that we give them nearly $500,000. Granted, I realize it's not all in cash, but the city does support TPAC. That's important for folks to know. Secondly, I would ask where that $50,000 would come from.
Councilman Lesser.
I will also say a little bit of the same thing that I scolded Spencer a little bit on as well in regards to some of the infrastructure. We're heating the building whether they're there or not, period. You know, otherwise, much of the maintenance that we do have to do is not going to stop whether TPAC isn't there or not. We have to do that to maintain the facility, to maintain the equipment, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm using the same logic to a certain extent that we had with him. He didn't have a capital account to replace his roof, no, but, you know, like I said, you know, some of these are ongoing expenses that we're going to have regardless. The other thing I think we have to remember a little bit of what this is. And what TPAC is and the impact that they do have downtown and in our community, and how they do fit into our Renaissance downtown with restaurants, with bars, with all of this nightlife thing. The plan is, you know, if right now, you know, let's say that their economic impact study of $9 million, let's say it's not right. Let's say it's $6 million, it's $5 million. That's still an economic impact on downtown and on our community. And that number is only going to go up if the planned downtown and the renovations do complete. People are then, you know, prior to that, there wasn't anywhere to walk to go eat before, or to walk to go eat after, or to go to the concert and then go have drinks with your friends afterwards. You know, those are the things that have an impact. So I think we have to remember what that is and what the impact of this entity is. We also have to look at a little bit of what they compete with. They can't compete with the Expo Center to a certain extent. They don't have the high ceilings for some of those shows. They don't have the number of seats for some of those shows. So they're caught in a little bit of a conundrum of what they can bring in, as well as what they do for the community. One thing I have received, lots of calls on is in response to, the different youth productions that are put on down there that do have a concern of if they cannot, don't have this funding, that those are going up. So I think we have to look at it to a certain extent in totality when we do this. So I would support Ms. Ortiz's motions to restore the 50,000. My recommendation is similar to what Karen, we need to hold these to the fire. I was very clear that you need to step your game up on these areas. And the areas that we're talking about there, that needs to go up 50%, period. Those numbers are ridiculous. And so that needs to happen. And this is kind of a certain extent a one-time expenditure. It's not salary for the fire department, for the police department. That is an ongoing expense that once we make these decisions, we have to continue to fund those things. I would recommend this is a perfect example where we take the 50,000 out of a reserve, use that money to pay for this. And if it's not, and they don't meet their game next year, then we don't have to renew it next year. But that's the perfect opportunity. That's what this type of money there is for. And that would be the only amendment I would have to Sylvia's motion. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor.
I have an unanswered question on the table.
City Manager, the question was for you with regards to where would the $50,000 come from?
Right, we will bring that recommendation to you when we make the amendment, when we bring the finalized budget.
Is that not what we're doing now? Well,
No.
we're amending to change the budget, though.
Right, correct.
Correct. However, what happens is that today we will see what the total number of amendments are, and then based on that, recommendations will come to the body.
And then we'll have to knock them out of the budget if we can't afford it.
We will bring back a list of where the changes are made in order for you to be able to understand the impacts of each change.
Thanks for the clarification.
Councilman Lesser.
Can you read, please, to me what Sylvia's motion was?
Councilmember Ortiz moved to increase TPAC's budget by $50,000.
Sylvia, would you accept a friendly amendment to pay for that $50,000 out of the reserves?
Councilwoman Ortiz.
Thank you. I'm going to follow that rule that we're supposed to follow. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I am going to let the city manager and staff come back with a recommendation, because for me to say I'm going to take it out of reserve, I don't know what reserve. We've got several reserves. I don't know where, and that's their job. So I'm going to let them bring that back to us. I know where I'd like to take it out of, but I can't. So I'm going to let them do their magic and bring it back. We look how big our budget is. Come on, guys. So that's I'm not going to tell him. He has a better idea. Where's Miss Lee? She's down there. She's probably working on it now. She'll probably email me when I get home. So.
Councilman Lesser.
Go ahead.
City
I
Manager.
was just going to say, Councilman Lesser, we will take a look at that as in one of the options. Obviously, we have to look at our reserve policies, and then we'll take a look at what other options we can, and if we can avoid that, we will, if it's a palatable option, but we'll take a look at, we'll consider that as well, given your comments.
Thank you. I'm fine with that. Thank you.
Okay. So we have a motion. Councilwoman Clear.
Does this include the benchmarks that they need to make? No?
No, but if you would like to make a friendly amendment, I mean, no, it's just approving an additional
Without-
$50,000.
Oh, no. I think we do need to continue the contract or the request or the requirements to get this money.
Okay. Councilwoman Ortiz?
We have to come up with a new contract, right? We have to sign a new contract. I think that's the opportune time to do it, when we sign that. Am I correct, legal?
I'm not sure at what point in time we need to enter into the new contract. I think you just signed a,
I just signed a 3-year extension
Right.
on the TPAC contract itself. So,
So is it already in the contract?
no, those types of items are not in the contract itself. There are other items that relate to the use of the facility and so on, but the performance items were not in the contract. That was established based on information I have from staff, was established outside of the contract regarding their funding. So that could be worked on but it's outside the contract.
Was that a year to year or?
The
what
last
was
time,
out-
I just had a note that was sent to me that it was 2016. Is that accurate, Nikki? 2016 was the last? There was a resolution passed in 2016 relative to their performance requirements.
Okay, and when does that expire?
That has expired already.
That has expired, so we can run a new resolution then? So if we approve the money tonight, we can come back and run that resolution, correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
Okay, so we have a motion and we have a second for the approval of adding $50,000 to TPAC. And the staff will come back later to us to let us know where the money came from so that we know where the allocation is coming from. So at this point, unless there's no more discussion on this item, we proceed with the voting.
We have 9 yes.
9 having voted yes, the motion passes. $50,000 is added to the TPAC budget. Any other amendments that the body would like to present to the staff? Councilwoman Ortiz.
Thank you. I would like to add 5,000 back to my way to work. It was cut out of the budget by 5,000. I've heard discussion about, well, we're not a babysitting service. But you know what? I talked to the chief of police and he got I meant to get that. He got an email and it said the #1 goal that you should do is give your kids a job in the summertime. And it was from I believe, the State of Affairs that they get all that news from. Again, it's just a little $5,000. I'm sure staff can find it. But until we take hold and start really trying to see, and I think we're on the right track with trying to talk to Shawnee County and trying to get them on board so until we can build this up, I think it'll be very, very beneficial. So that's my motion.
We have a motion to add $5,000. I was going to say 50, Councilwoman. Go ahead. To the Way to Work program. Do we have a second? Councilwoman Clear? Is a second? Do we have any discussions with regards to this item? Deputy Mayor?
I just have a question. We didn't spend that money last year on the program. Are you expecting the program to change this year and spend that in some way?
Councilwoman Ortiz.
Thank you. I'm expecting to change the rules so we can spend it. And the rules have been changed twice.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we're getting on board where we can hire more kids, part-time kids, and also look at the fact of having Shawnee County get on board. You know, our rec centers, they could use kids there, you know, if we can talk that into, and there's things that haven't been done. So when you're under an income guideline and you don't meet that guideline, then no, you can't get hired. And I want this for all kids. You know, I want it open for all kids, just like your grant was open to all people. They just had to match it. This is open to all kids. There was 1 year that it was income guideline, and then we couldn't get our kids to pass the drug test. I'm sorry, in the real world, that happens. You're not going to get the job if you cannot pass the drug test. And so that excluded the other kids out because of the income guideline. So I don't think we need an income guideline. I think we just need to open it up and fill it out, and we would use all the money.
Excellent. That was my question.
Okay.
I'm happy to support this. I'm nervous about just lobbing demands for money at the staff. You know, they do a pretty good job managing our budget now, and I realize this is not a ton of money, but you know, we don't have infinite resources, and things are not free, contrary to what popular belief of the day is. So I'm nervous about asking them to rebalance the budget again and again. Thank you.
Councilwoman Clear?
I know I've asked this before, but what do we actually spend, say, for the last 2 years without me having to dig in it's probably in my book.
I have to look back here. I'm trying to remember myself.
Because we've never turned anybody away because we didn't have the money.
Yeah, it was below the 30,000. I want to say it was in the 24 and 20,000 range.
And when did we turn away kids because we didn't have enough money?
Never. That hasn't been, I don't believe, I mean, not since I've been here. I don't know. Not that I'm aware of. Now, there are a number of issues that we've turned kids away for, but as we've gone through the process and the interview process.
So not for lack of funds?
I don't believe so.
Councilwoman Ortiz?
Thank you. The first year, the city manager Colson put an extra, is Jackie here? I think it was 10,000. Or how much was it? Because then we
20,000.
I know we hired
I definitely believe that
10 more
can answer these
kids.
questions in much more detail than I can.
I remember he put more in there because it was so successful. The first year, we had like 300 and some applicants.
We added one additional employee the first year over the funding based on projected spending, and we still underspent what was budgeted, but we were prepared to fill one of it with temporary funds from Human Resources to accommodate 11 instead of 10, but it ended up not being necessary.
Because
the amount of the deductions were less than anticipated when we originally forecast how many we could.
I thought he added more than that. No?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay.
At that particular year, it was being ran out of neighborhood relations under Monique, but that was my understanding of how the funding ended up working out.
And so we haven't turned any child away because of lack of funding?
No, we have not. That's not been an issue.
Councilwoman Clear.
Oops. So have we had money left over in that account each year?
That is my understanding, yes.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Councilwoman Hiller and then Councilwoman Ortiz.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm troubled about this just because I'll key back to what the city manager said. For us getting into business, it's not a primary core business for us. It must have been in one of our work sessions about this, talked about different ways to tackle this. There's creating positions just so kids get some money. There's, if we're interning them and putting them in all the different departments, are they getting a good opportunity to work? How is our different departments and staff leaders prepared to accommodate them? Is it really quality time? We had a proposal that, and it was a seasoned proposal, that a job shadowing program could be much more useful to kids with a job shadowing with a stipend rather than a 2-month job with pay. Already this year, we've rolled our kids back to just afternoons instead of all day. Is that right? We just.
No, it's not just afternoons. That was something that we're looking at.
Okay. I thought we were talking about it then. I just look at us putting a lot of time into a program whereby if we really want to contribute to a summer job program, maybe we need to set aside the $25,000 and give it to an entity that works with youth all the time, that does youth placements. And I'm not saying who it would be because I don't know. I'm just wondering if we're out of our league.
Part of it is availability of kids and allowing the kids to be able to balance with other things. And so one of the things that we did this year was it's a Monday, Wednesday, Friday program so that they could still be involved with sports camps, with cheer camps, etc. The rationale for considering having it just be in the afternoons is that we cut out any students that need to attend summer school during the entire month of June by having it. Right now the hours are 9 to 3, but summer school is 8 to noon and it's mandatory. You can't miss any, and that's the whole month of June. So in talking with the schools, that's why we were considering that as a change for next year. One of the biggest challenges that we have to filling the positions is the number of positions and the type of work that the age of the students can do within city employment. And so I do think that there's some value to trying to partner, but certainly it's also matching the interest of the kids based on what we have available here and making sure that the departments can accommodate that based on the child labor laws. So there's a lot of different things that we try to match up and balance, but the primary things are availability of kids and balance for them and their other activities, as well as what kind of work we have available within city employment based on their ages.
I really
Councilwoman
appreciate that feedback. I guess as I hear that and watch us go year to year with that program, I'm thinking that if we looked at what seemed like a good program for kids and found somebody who was running something like that and offered X number of placements, I remember the conversation about job shadowing was where you worked with the kids and asked them what kind of career things they might want to try out and get some experience in. And then they place them accordingly, whether it be at city government or in a clerical position or a ditch digging position, whatever is all right. Or, if somebody wants to maybe be a doctor or an epidemiologist or something like that, they go out to KDHE, or they would go to a hospital or a clinic or something. And I understand wanting to make sure that there are summer experience programs for our kids. I just think we've struggled with being the sponsor of it, and maybe $25,000 is enough dollars for us to keep working on finding the right setup.
So we have a motion on the table, and the motion is is there somebody that rose their hand?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, Councilman Emerson, pardon me.
Thank you, Mayor, no problem. I just had a question for the city manager on this. If we did allocate the 30,000, you wouldn't spend that unless you had the demand for it, correct?
That's accurate, yes.
Thank you.
Okay, so we have a motion and we have a second on the table to include $5 additional thousand with the Topeka Way to Work program. Seeing no further comments, we proceed with the voting.
We have 7 yes, council members Hiller and Clear voting no.
7 having voting yes, the motion passes. Do we have additional amendments to bring in front of the body? Councilwoman Clear.
This isn't an amendment per se, it's a request. With the 501 contract that they have with the city for the officers in the schools, next year before we sign that contract, I would like there to be a discussion regarding 501 paying the full cost of having those officers in the school or providing their own officers. So I just want a discussion at that time before the contract is signed and we commit to the $250,000.
Councilwoman Ortiz.
I would also like you to look at, if we're in a contract, that we have to provide half of it, is that correct? I believe it is so. And also, are they in a grant? If there's a grant, that we got a grant, then we have to do it for so many years, and I believe that is so. So I don't believe that might be an option. So if you can look at that and let us know that, because I was always under the understanding that all of our officers, police officers in the schools that were under grant and they had to do it for so many years. So I would like to know if that's so.
Okay.
Thank you.
We have 2 suggestions for the body, requests. Any additional comments or amendments? Councilman Emerson?
Thank you, Mayor. Also not an amendment, but something, I have spoken to Mr. Trout several times during our meetings about this, but we just spent the better part of an hour, maybe more, and we're really talking about $55,000. But when you look at our $292 million budget, 80% of that is personnel costs. I mean, personnel is what really drives our budget costs. So my real concern is over time. I mean, we're adding 6 positions this year, and I know staff does a great job of trying to winnow those positions and to make sure they're truly needed. But I guess my issue is that's probably $600,000 in cost we've added this year, or will in 2019. If you figure each position with benefits, retirements, and everything's maybe $100,000. And my concern is over time, adding 6 here and 8 here and 3 or 4 here, pretty soon 100% of our budget is going to be personnel costs. We won't have, fuel for the police cars or for the fire engines or money to replace those. So I would love the city manager and his staff to look into, is there any way could we get by with 5 additions this year instead of 6, for instance? Is there anything we can do? I think in 1989, when I got out of the Air Force, I came back to Topeka, and I weighed 192 pounds. And I know that number because the Air Force, if you're within 10 pounds of your maximum for your height, you get the opportunity to weigh once a week. So I come here and, I get married in 92, and, in a couple of years later, I'm like, I'm only up 5 pounds. I'm doing great. And, slowly then 5 pounds a year or 2 pounds a year, then 20 years later, you're 100 pounds. And I think all organizations, including my company, are the same way. Over time, you get fat, frankly. And for my company, I know we've gotten fat because we no longer get bids. We're not as efficient as the next guy. So, and I know, City Manager, this is something you're working on with the Lean Initiative, and I know you've only been here 6 months, but I would please ask you to look at that again with a very critical eye if you could, and just see if there might be an opportunity to reduce by 1 or something, and then these 2 things we just added are more than paid for. Thank you.
Councilwoman Ortiz?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. One of the things that I'm going to be looking at, I know the budget's pretty well set, and this is our budget. We can switch around. Staff's duty is to bring us a budget. Our duty is to cut it up, cut it out, or whatever, and have them figure it out. And we need to remember that. One of the things that I will be bringing next year, or try to see if I need to bring this, City Manager, where I live at, we have those culverts, is that right, that go under the driveways, and a lot of those we have to pay for, but a lot of my constituents believe that the city should be paying for that because it's in that the right of way, and there's a lot of my constituents that cannot pay for that. So I would like to try to set up a program, whether it's a 50-50 program, or first of all, is that our responsibility that we pay for that? I had a gentleman that said that some of the tubing that we take out, we should be able to reuse, but we don't, we throw it away. Is that something that we need to look at? Or is that the city's responsibility to take care of the easement when those go bad and those rust out because they're the water flow in the ditches? And if not, I'd like to see where we could put that in our budget to help those that have a hardship with that, because I know the city, we pay for it right now, and the city puts it in, and that's all good, but it's $250, $300, and that could be a hardship on people with low to moderate income. And if that's our responsibility, I think we need to have it, and maybe it is in the budget. I don't know if you can tell me that, but if it's not, I think we need to look at that so that we can have that and get that taken care of. Thank you. And to Mr. Emerson, we've all gained a little weight, but if you just give those bids out, you'd make more money,
Deputy Mayor, and then Councilman Lesser.
So my only comment is I appreciate the work that everyone and the staff have done to put this budget together. My comment is simply, somewhat along the lines of yours, is as we go through and look at things, 2 things. What is the impact to public health in everything that the city does? How we try to work to shed those few pounds that we've gained over the years. And then, that was a joke, people, come on, you're killing me here. And then, where does it make sense, instead of hiring someone or buying something, to farm that out to the private sector? Often the private or nonprofit sectors can do things cheaper, faster, better than can the government. So where does it make sense in some of these things, rather than to hire a dedicated person just to do that, does it to contract that out? Thank you. Please be safe on the 4th.
Councilman Lesser.
No, all I had to, is to add to Councilman Emerson's comments, and as I've said before, I have great confidence in your leadership, Mr. Trout, and I know the plans that you have in the works. I would just also implore you, as we look forward, due to such high health insurance costs, expediting the expenses that have come about with employees. I would ask you to take a hard look at those certain situations, if there was a retirement, what it was of some of the different activities that we can use the private sector for, and preferably the local private sector, when possible, obviously. I just think, as Councilman Emerson said, we need to look at those different types of options as we move forward. And I just implore you to keep your eye on that when it makes sense to do so.
Councilwoman Claire, then Councilwoman Hiller.
I don't know the answer to this, and that's why I'm asking the question. On the Topeka Metro, I know it's based on taxes. Why is that? And is there other ways that we could help fund this? I know they offer so many free rides to so many different groups of people that they're either going to run out of revenue or they're going to have to stop that and they won't be able to add additional services. Is there other ways we can help fund them, or does it actually have to be taxes?
City Manager.
Councilwoman Clear, it would go through the taxes. That's the best way as far as them utilizing the levy that they have. And we're working through the process that would allow that to be changed so that they would have the funding that they need. It requires some changes to the city charter in order to be able to do so. Not something that we can utilize for this budget year, given the time frame that's required in order to make that change. But staff is already working with Topeka Metro in order to be able to go through the process that would be required. So that's already in the process.
Great. All right, thank you.
Councilwoman Hiller.
Thank you, Mayor. Overall, I made these comments, some of them a little earlier, but I wanted to kind of wrap it up with thoughts tonight. This is the first budget that City Manager Trout has brought in, and I think as evidenced by the comments tonight, I'm just really thrilled with it. Brought it in with what we wanted in the first place, which in particular was to make sure that we had 100% of the money we needed for streets, and I confirmed that in the last week to make sure it was in there for sure, and also the desire that was pretty obvious from the council that we didn't want to raise taxes. And so thank you for that, and it's a great way to start. I do think that that this is your first year, and so getting the start with this framework of the budget, there's a couple things I hope would happen. One is that we had a lot of discussion in the CIP and the capital budget discussion, and at one point, without naming projects, your comment to me was, okay, just get this done and let me work on this with the departments and so on. And so I really hope that the conversations that we had about capital budget and so on, and on this one, do get heard and get worked on through the year. I think it's safe to say that whatever we pass would be the most that we would spend, but we'd be fine with spending less than that over the course of the year. I also really like the fact that the way the budget book was done and that we are talking about being performance-based. I hope that in the year up to the next budget, actually, and in 2019, we continue to work on developing. Some of the departments have really great performance-based goals, and some of them, obviously, that's still kind of new to them. And so seeing that develop in terms of the departments having outcomes / performance-based goals, and then in practice as well, seeing that roll out is important to me. I also was very concerned when we asked about, people know that I've talked about debt and concern about spending money needlessly, if you will, on interest and financing charges. And one of the questions in our packet was, how much are we spending on interest on temporary notes? And it was over $400,000 last year. And so I would really like to see us work on some strategies before the next budget cycle starts on how we can reduce those kinds of expenses, still getting what we need, but reduce those kinds of expenses in our budget. And to kind of wrap that up, I really do think we need to give you a framework to move forward with, but I I would hope that we could actually work with the city manager, each of us with the things that we've seen and the kinds of conversations we've had, and get $1 million in economies identified before the next budget period. I think we can do it. Thank you.
All right. Councilwoman Ortiz.
City Manager, when they merged the parks and recs together, and you can get back with me, they said every year we would have so much of a savings, or, for each year, it'd start, are we topped off, or do we have a savings this year?
Deputy Manager Gerber has a little more experience with this, so I'll let him explain it since he was involved or has been involved with it.
Madam Mayor and Councilwoman, yes, is the short answer to your question. Basically, those extra funds have just allowed us to absorb additional expenses over the years, over the last couple budget years.
If I may, Madam Mayor.
Yes, Councilwoman.
As I'm gonna follow the rules.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
What did they pay for this year, and how much of a savings did we have? And if you need to get back with me, that's fine.
I think it would be my preference to get back to you on that, although I believe that we've tapped out that resource at this point.
Will
But
we
I'd like
be-
to confirm that and get back to you.
Will we be level next year? Or will we continue to have a savings next year?
I don't believe so, but again, if I could check on that and get back to you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Okay. I don't see any more hands or movement with regards to amendments and comments on the budget. I do want to thank the staff for the phenomenal work that they did this year. City Manager, you handled this first year's budget admirably, so thank you very much for your work. There is, the voting has occurred. There is no, yes, City Manager.
I want to thank my staff. Obviously, they were a lot of help with regards to this. My first budget, very large budget, a lot of different moving parts, and I want to thank my staff tremendously for it. Nikki and Nick and Doug, and of course the department directors as we worked through it. I couldn't do it without them, and so it was their efforts as well, so I want to thank them.
That's wonderful. So at this point in time, if there is no other items, we will now proceed with announcements. And the first one to make announcements, actually, City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. I have two items that I want to discuss tonight. The first one is that originally we were looking at having the sales tax item on the agenda tonight, and for a couple of different reasons. Prior to a holiday and some other work that we're doing, we decided not to have it on the agenda. But it will be on the agenda for July 17th for consideration, and so staff is working to pull that together. So just wanted to make sure you're aware that we are looking to have that vote in order to move forward with the ballot language on July 17th. One last comment I have is staff in the clerk's office and the Topeka Police Department have been making stops, making the rounds to the different vendors that are there on Friday nights for the first Fridays. We've been providing them a lot of information regarding what the requirements are in order for them to be able to operate. We've done that the last two Friday nights and have been providing that information. Just as a warning, we are looking at it's time for us to enforce what is the law. We provided them information, we provided them warnings, and so any vendors that are out there that are looking at being involved with these events, if you're unsure as to what your requirements are, please contact the city clerk's office. Talk to Brenda or anyone on our staff in order to make sure you have the right permits in place in order to be able to operate at one of these events. That's all I have, Mayor.
Preliminary agenda.
Oh, preliminary agenda, if the clerk would read.
July 10th agenda includes a presentation on the hands-only CPR. We have, it looks like 5 appointments. We, action items include a labor agreement for development services in the planning. And then we have a notice of public hearing for the 2019 operating budget.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to make some quick remarks with regards to saying thank you to the beautiful families over at Ripley Park that gathered. We did 2 weeks of door knocking and canvassing and just hearing out what the families had to say. And then after that, we had a barbecue with the families. We played baseball, we played soccer. We had a great time. We had barbecues and we had hot dogs. And they shared with us, and I was sharing earlier with the two councilwomen that are representative of the areas, what the residents were saying that their concerns were. Just so that you guys have an idea, we talked to between 200 and 250 individuals. Most of the residents of the area that we talked to were from Timberley Apartments. Most of them were single moms and had anywhere from 2 to 4 kids. And when we talked to them and we said, because one of the things that I want to make sure that we all have very cognizant about, what I consider success for me does not mean that it's success for you, or for anybody else. And I think that we owe that respect and that dignity to our neighborhoods as well. And being able to go to the neighborhoods and ask, what do you want? What do you want to see in the neighborhoods? What would you like to see bettered? Both councilwomen had the same conversation and they had heard the same thing from their constituents. So I'm happy to report to both of you, first of all, thank you for advocating with your constituents and sharing with our friends at the county that they're really concerned about their park. And it was interesting, if you go to the Michelle for Topeka page, which is the mayor's page on Facebook, you could see a whole bunch of people came out and they were all eating, and there were a whole bunch of little kids. And one of the things that moved me the most was that there was this young man whose name is Isaiah, and Isaiah was saying, all I want to have is access for my brother that has a wheelchair. And I would like for my brother to be able to play on the swings because we don't have something like that for him. And how powerful to have our kids tell us exactly what they want. By the way, they want a splash pad too. Some of them were asking about the pool, and I said, wow, the pool is going to cost a lot of money. But they said, we really would love to have a splash pad because it gets really, really hot. And they have that huge area that you could just camp out under that covers you, and they would love to have the splash pad. The other thing that was awesome of being over at Ripley Park and meeting the beautiful families and the awesome kids was the fact that, I don't know if you all knew this, but we have a cricket club in the city of Topeka. And not only do we have a cricket club, but they mow the area, the grounds, and they level the ground because they typically have wobbly area. And apparently that area used to be a pool before that got filled in, and it is not very leveled. So they were saying, hey, we really want to partner with the city and with the county because we would love to have a series of sports events that will bring in people from all over to do cricket tournaments here in the city of Topeka. And what a great thing to show that Ripley Park does have its challenges, but it's not as dangerous as people perceive it to be. And I have been saying over and over that poverty is not synonymous with crime. And we have to take that into account. A lot of the families that live in Ripley are families that are working a job. Some of them are working too, but those jobs are $7 an hour, $7.50. And that's not sexy enough for you to have a big house, right? So we have to start redefining our idea of what poverty is, give those families the dignity that they deserve. Not every single individual that lives there is an individual that commits crime. Most of them are wonderful individuals. I was there, super safe, had fun with the individuals playing cricket, and I absolutely loved the families that I talked to. And I encourage all of you to do the same and get to know them. So thank you very much for allowing me to play in your neighborhoods. Councilwoman Claire.
Yeah, a couple of things. I just want to remind people about your sidewalks, that there is a 50-50 program with the city. I know a lot of elderly people sometimes don't know this and do their sidewalks and pay the full cost, but get hold of the city and there is some help with your sidewalks. North Topeka, historic North Topeka East still needs volunteers for the National Night Out, and they meet at 6 o'clock Mondays at the pad. And the Fiesta is July 10th through the 14th. There's a 5K run July 7th from 8 to 10. You meet at the Oakland Community Center. And then the parade is at 10:30. It starts at 4th in Kansas. And I'll tell you what, I have charged and ran down my devices because I'm an anxious grandmother, and if Abby doesn't have that calf. Where are we, Brendan? What is she doing? I know more about giraffes now and I've watched more. Yeah, I wake up in the middle of the night and go, ching. That's it. Thank you.
Councilwoman Ortiz.
Thank you. First, I'd like to ask Dr. Peak to come to the podium for me, please. And while he's coming, I just want to say East Topeka North NIA has done a lot in East Topeka, or in Ripley Park. We've got some very, very good basketball goals up over there, but they don't get utilized enough. And there's a bathroom over there. The cricket club, I've been thrown off the cricket club's field a couple times. I've been out there picking up trash. They are real particular about who's out there. If you're not, with their club, they don't want you out there. But Ripley is underutilized so much. I wanted you to come forward because I know I've been on you about our parking lot, which looks great. It looks so awesome, and I caught flack behind that too. I have a funny story to tell, and then I want to come down and give you a hug and tell you thank you. I had to go to the courthouse on Friday, and I was like, what in the world is going on? So I had to park 2 blocks away. And then I was going through, of course, I sent, the guards and everything, and they said, well, who's the council member that wanted this damn parking lot done? And I said, that'd be me. And so anyway, they gave me crap about that. But it looks great. It looks great. We took care of our responsibility, and I'm going to come and give you a hug, because that's just what I do. To let you know I appreciate it. Thank you. It's been years. Thank you.
Poor guy, you made him red.
That's just what we do, and I appreciate you, Jason, and I'm off to my next mission to see what I can find and get you to do. Yes, it's fiesta time, and I would hope that each and every one of you would come down and celebrate with Tony's people. Thank you.
I will say very shortly that I announced early in the year that I was going to be in Puerto Rico next week, so I will not be here. You will have the delight of having Deputy Mayor running the meeting again. I will both be seeing my grandmother that is not doing great, and I will also be speaking at a graduation down there. So I will miss the fiesta, so make sure that you have some tamales for me.
Thank you, Mayor. Tomorrow, of course, is the 4th of July, and out in beautiful District 4, we have the Spirit of Kansas each year on the 4th of July. So just wanted to invite everyone to come out there. I see on TV like Wamego and people are advertising. Don't go there. Come to District 4, spend your money, keep all your money local here. People in Wamego, come here to District 4 and spend your money. But seriously, there's stuff all day out there, and on a serious note, last year there was a lady ran over and killed out there. So a lot of traffic out there at night. Please be careful, but everyone have a great 4th.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to reiterate what Tony said. Have a good time over the holidays. Be safe. Be careful what you do. And enjoy yourselves. I want to also thank Liz. I don't know if she's still in the audience or not. And Vicki for helping me make it to Phoenix and back for the NALEO conference. I really enjoyed it and met a lot of people from across the country with a lot of good ideas. I've already talked with our deputy mayor about some information that we're working on right now about bringing the 5G to the city of Topeka and how they did it out in California. It's really impressive what can happen and looking at the whole smart city concept that I think Topeka is poised for. So I really thank the staff for helping me get there and back safely. And again, the fiesta. If you're able to make it for the VIP night, please make it. And if you can't, any night at all, I'll probably be there 3 or 4 or 5 nights hosting. My family lives right on the corner of Greeley and Chandler, and like everybody stops there to say hello. So if you get a chance, and if you stay late enough to see what the Topeka Police Department does with the fiesta when they close it, I think you'll be duly impressed. So, and Chief, I want to thank you for what you've been doing here recently. I think your work is really continuing in the community, and thank you for your efforts. Compliments to Officer Bell. I know you have more officers in the department that are doing the same thing for the Latino community, so I appreciate that work. Thank you very much.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. So I would like to invite all of you to the College Hill Parade in the morning at 10 a.m. I am delighted to be their Grand Marshal. Yes, it will be quite fun. It's rather quick, but that neighborhood has so much fun with its parade. I mean, it's just an amazing experience to see everybody come out and really celebrate the birth of our nation, essentially. I'd love for you all to come if you can. Also, lots of fireworks. Please be safe. It's very, very dangerous. It's very hot and dry. We don't want anything catching on fire. I know Chief Duke is rather busy as it is, just putting out the fires we already have with this heat. So please be safe. Have a wonderful 4th. We'll see you guys next week.
Councilman Mays has nothing. Councilman Lesser, do you have anything?
I would just like to wish all my constituents a happy 4th of July. I also would like to note that Councilman Padilla has not offered for me to park in his family's area at Fiesta, but I guess I can walk like Mr. Emerson needs to. But,
Councilwoman Hiller.
I wasn't done.
I thought that was your wrap up with the punchline. Continue, Councilman Lesser.
On a more somber note, I do want to give my condolences to the Ken Fandensteel family. Their son Riley was a senior at Topeka High, was top in his class academically, going to go to medical school, and the young man fought a courageous 18-month battle with brain cancer that he lost. So my thoughts are with them and their family. So have a safe 4th. Thank you.
Councilwoman Hiller.
Real quickly, since Stephen Massey's still here, would you stand up? He is the choreographer and CEO and whatever all the titles are of It Takes a Village, which is one of the new troops that is using TPAC. And he has done for the last 2 years Chocolate Nutcracker at Christmas time, 3 years, and is doing a new show, Say What Whiz, this summer. I'm going on the 21st of July. Tickets are $10. He'll fill that house. No?
15 adults, 10 for youth, and one night only 6 p.m. and it's called Say What Say With.
That was close. Trying to look it up on my phone real fast. Thank you so much for what you're doing, because you're really enriching what we have to offer. Other than that, I will put on my beads as well. And I wanted to thank the fire department and the police department. When we talked about the changing the rules for the 4th of July and snugging up the season for next year, we made it real clear that enforcement in a positive way was important to all of us. And I know that in District 1 anyway, I think the citizens heard that. It has not been, the pre-season fireworks were not at all like they've been in the past. We do know some incidents. I've heard some complaints too, but I do know some incidents where the departments went out and did some preliminary work too, and I appreciate that a lot. Hats off to my Potwin folks who do a parade and all sorts of things for 4th of July, as well as Historic Holiday Park that does a picnic in the park, and happy and safe 4th to everyone.
Thank you very much. Councilwoman Ortiz, you wanted to make a statement?
I just wanted to remind the council that, in our strategic planning, we wanted to increase our constituents by 1,000. And I just wanted to say that number has changed. Congratulations to Liz. So we have 999 to go. I think she just walked out, but so we got 999 to go, and we started immediately. So we're meeting that goal.
So now we proceed to the public comment section. We have 3 individuals signed up to speak. The first one is Mr. Willard Steinkühler.
May it please Her Honor, Mayor, Michelle Dela, Isla. May it please the city council members, may it please the manager, city manager, Mr. Brent Trout. I have one success, 3 thank yous, and a recognition. Based on what has transpired this evening, I feel like saying congratulations and thank you to all of you for all the work that you've done for the city. My small information here has simply to do with it's a follow-up on dog licensing. Perhaps you remember the little dachshund that died 8 days before his present year of licensing. I paid for the next year of licensing, and they wouldn't give. There was no refund, and I tried to work that through, and I believe I did. However, I want to read to you the success that I consider to be part of this. It says, for refund inquiries regarding pets that have passed, contact the Topeka Police Department address and phone number, and then below it has the phone number, the 800 number for pet data. And I do have a couple of specific recommendations. But my first of the 3 thank yous goes to my councilman, Anthony Emerson, District 4. Second, city manager, Brent Trout, for your work on the licensing. And the third one for Tracy Page, works for the police department. Very, very efficient, very helpful lady. Everything, she just helped me very much in getting everything done that I felt that I wanted to do with this, because there are, and I believe there are some problems in this that need to be addressed. My recognition is for the longevity, knowledge, and experience of the city council member of the 3rd District. Your work is valuable and appreciated. I'm just going to kind of get to the recommendations, because this has been, it seems to me like a very heavy council meeting with all of the budget that you talked about and the 4th of July tomorrow and things. So basically, I believe that the city of Topeka, the police department, could be helped by some quantitative recommendations as to when a particular license, a certain amount of money that was refunded for a particular license.
You still have a minute, sir.
Oh, okay. And also pet data really needs to be, I don't know, improved, because pet data always responds with saying that they are the Topeka Animal Licensing, and you get the impression that you're talking to someone from Topeka, but that's not the case. And then they will tell you that, I'm sorry, there's no policy for a refund. And they're right, but we need to be referred back to the police department when someone calls pet data. Thank you, that's all I have.
Thank you so much, Mr.
Appreciate it.
Steinkooler. You have a happy 4th.
Thank you.
The next person signed up to speak is Mr. Myron Holter.
Here you go, Ken. Take one and pass it around. My name's Myron Holter, and before I begin, I would like to thank you for coming tomorrow to be the speaker at Grace Episcopal. My wife and I are going to be singing in the choir.
Wonderful.
There's going to be 100 of us singing, and unfortunately I got put in the front row. But, oh well. What I would like to share with you all is use the internet to the glory of God. And if I can tell everybody about it, I will do it. And ChristInOurHome.blogspot.com is what I do on a daily basis. and you can Google me, punch in my name, punch in my web address, and every day I get up early in the morning, before I do anything else, I open up the Bible and I say, God, what do you want me to do today? And then I read Christ in Our Home. Now you'll notice that it's now obsolete. If you want to get the new copy, got to go to some Lutheran church somewhere, okay? You can pick them up at Our Savior's Lutheran Church. But what I really wanted to ask you is, one of the last times I was here, I was put in handcuffs. I built a church in my backyard, and I think I spoke to you, Mr. Mays, a while back in regarding to this structure that I had built in my backyard. I called it the Old Farm Church. The city wanted to come and look at it. I said, yeah, come on. It's just a church. I had it approved. I had a permit for it. The city said, do this and do that and do that. I said, great, I'll paint it. They says, paint it. I painted the American flag on this structure. And my neighbor vandalized it. I read somewhere that if somebody vandalizes something, the city will come out and paint it for you. I read that on your little blog that you have. You just look at your Channel 4, you know. It says, somebody vandalizes or graffitis your property or something, we'll paint it for you. Come on over. It's gone. My church is gone. I have spent over $20,000 trying to pay for court costs. I got sent to jail. I've been arrested and humiliated. You can do something if you like. Please come and visit my website. Come and visit my property anytime. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, sir. Have a happy 4th. Next person signed up to speak is Mr. Sam Riley. Sam Riley, are you on the... Sam Riley is not present. That concludes our meeting. Being no other items in the agenda, the meeting is adjourned.